Welcome to The Roar, podcast for fans of the Detroit Lions. My name is Demetrius. With me, as always, my friend and super producer, Mike Ward. We have a special edition today, our normal post-game podcast. We're through the season. We dropped a nice off-season podcast when everything was going on. One of the most exciting weeks in Lions history. We got a new GM, new coach. We got coordinators. We had all kinds of things going on, and they announced that they were going to part ways with Stafford. So we dropped one to cover all that. And now the trade has happened. So it's pretty exciting. There's a lot to unpack. So we talked about it and decided, hey, let's go ahead and throw a mini podcast out there. We'll do a 3-and-out style where Michael just asked me 3 questions, and we'll try and cover every aspect of the trade. And I will get to say goodbye to my favorite quarterback, and we can go from there. So like I said, we're going to do a 3-and-out style, and I'll throw it over to Mike for the first one.
Probably help if I pulled up the questions.
It would.
All right. So our first new and improved 3-and-out. What was your initial reaction to the trade? I got to know this. As an unapologetic Stafford fan.
Yeah, exactly. That is how I continue to describe myself. I am unapologetically a Matthew Stafford guy. So my first thought was, okay, it's real, right? I had heard that we had a week it was a Saturday when they announced they were parting ways, and it was a Saturday a week later when the trade happened. And so my first thought was, okay, it's real. It's real. So I need to confirm the first thing I've read, which is to the Rams for Jared Goff, a 3rd-round pick this year, a first next year, and a first in 2023. So my initial reaction was, damn, that's a great trade. I didn't really have a set of expectations. I thought 2 picks minimum. One of them needed to be a 1, and that would be a good trade. I would be happy with that. To hear that they got 2 2s, a 3, and at worst, a serviceable quarterback, at best, a good quarterback, like a guy who's won playoff games and went to the Super Bowl, my reaction was extremely positive, right? Goff was the first pick overall in 2016. He had some kind of falling out with Sean McVay this past season, but he was 42-20 as a starter. He went to a Super Bowl. So he's not like a bag of potatoes and a bottle of hot sauce. He can play quarterback for us, right? So the thing has been, okay, his deal, he's got 4 years left on a 5-year deal. He signed a little more than a year ago, maybe. And there's $43 million in guaranteed money over the next 2 years. And I keep hearing people talk about that negatively, and I don't get it. I think that's about the same that we owed Stafford. And I don't know, I think the cap hit is differently, bigger in the first year, less in the second. But if you think about it, it's $43 million they're going to pay him over 2 years. The 26-year-old they just acquired, that it's not a bum. They can work with him. And they were going to pay Stafford that anyway. Or they owed Stafford that. 2 years left on his deal. And I think it's roughly the same number. This is not even about Goff. Even if you don't like Jared Goff, you should like this deal. I happen to like Jared Goff. So I think it's a great deal because I like him. I think if you don't like him, you have to at minimum think it's a good deal because you got 2 1s and a 3. And even if the 1s are later, you have to be realistic, despite them saying this is a retool. This is a rebuild. We're not competing for a Super Bowl next year. So those picks are incredibly valuable, whether they're actual players we select, whether they're assets that are used to acquire more picks or acquire a player, move up in the draft, move back in the draft. Those picks are so valuable. The best friend of a rebuild is draft capital. It's just reality. So for Stafford, for my quarterback, who is still my quarterback, it's perfect. I don't know that they could have found a better spot for him. They're likely going to contend for a Super Bowl next year. This makes them one of the two or three best teams in the NFC. Now, I'm a Lions fan. I love Matthew Stafford, really do. Priority 1, I'm a Lions fan, and I love this deal for my team. For where we are now, at the beginning of a rebuild, for just the absolute value you got for a 33-year-old quarterback, I love this deal. For him, I'm actually happy for him too. I think he's going to a place that's going to allow him to cement his legacy. He's going to win games there. He's going to show everyone what I already knew. They're likely going to contend for a Super Bowl. He will likely get playoff wins, which is the thing that they always say about him. 2 years at least, probably more in LA. He will. The question of Stafford being a Hall of Famer will no longer be a question by the time he's done there. So for Jared Goff, the only comment I've seen from him was simple. I'm just excited, or I'm really excited to be somewhere where they want me and appreciate me. That's called motivation. That's like, okay, Rams, I will show you. So my initial reaction after a couple of days is, and it's still the same. I feel even better about it. I think that you got draft capital to rebuild, and you got a serviceable quarterback who can play quarterback for 2 years. Not even serviceable. Competent quarterback play is something that I think if they understand his skill set, they tailor things around him. Don't ask him to do too much. You could see on film what he did well in LA, because he did some things well, or they don't go to a Super Bowl 2 years ago. And you can see what he didn't do well, and stay away from those things. I don't understand the narrative that his contract is an issue, because after 2 years, you can walk away with no dead cap money. So 2 years from now, if it's working out, extend him. You got your quarterback, and you can put all that draft capital into your defense that Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia systematically destroyed. I agree. Mike's dog doesn't even like Matt Patricia. His dog doesn't even like Matt Patricia, people.
This is true.
So I think it's important that the draft capital is huge to support a legitimate rebuild, but don't sleep on Jared Goff, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying he's going to come in and make the Pro Bowl and lead us to a Super Bowl. I'm saying he's better than David Blau, better than Chase Daniel, right? Which is not saying a lot, because I guess you could have gone out and signed Jameis Winston, or you probably could have acquired Teddy Bridgewater or somebody like that. I think Jared Goff is a quarterback who played in a Super Bowl, and 2 years ago, he has a 42-20 record, and he played in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. He can't be that bad, unless you just believe it was all Sean McVay, which you might, So I don't understand that whole narrative about his contract. I don't understand the idea that he's somehow a bum. And I think Anthony Lynn, the new offensive coordinator, Mark Brunell, the new quarterbacks coach, and I like the staff, by the way, obviously, and Dan Campbell, they have to work together and be smart, because it's obvious that Brad Holmes likes Jared Goff. He was part of the group that drafted him, that moved up in the draft to get him 4 years ago. He knows him. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. I don't think Lynn is similar to Sean McVay. I don't think his offensive style would be similar. So depending on which report you believe, was it a clash of personality between he and McVay? Then you don't disparage his talent. You don't disparage what he can do on the field. You bring him in and you work with him to put him in a position to be successful, which every team is trying to do with their quarterback, irrespective of who that is. And to me, the $43 million is nothing, like relatively speaking. To you and I, Mike, it's a lot. But from an NFL quarterback standpoint, that's not that bad, particularly when there's no penalty in 2 years. You're going to need at least 2 years to rebuild this thing anyway. So I mean, we could talk about all the different options at quarterback, but the fact that you have no dead money, if you release him in 2 years, this is a perfect scenario. You got 2 years to either resurrect this guy and rebuild his career, or find out who he is while you build out the rest of your roster. And in 2 years, you shake his hand and you void the other 2 years of his contract, and you do whatever. You sign a quarterback, you draft a quarterback, you do whatever you need to do. So one of the things that can be done with these picks is you can maneuver. These picks give you the ability to move. So whether it's this year's draft, next year's draft, or even 23, if there's a guy, you have a grade on him and you like him, these picks give you the ability to recover if Jared Goff doesn't work out. If the Jared Goff situation doesn't work as well as we had hoped, it gives you the ability to say, okay, we can move on really easily. We can spend the 7th pick. I don't think you're going to do it this year. So next year we can spend our pick. We can spend a Rams pick. We can couple those picks and move up if there's a guy we love. we can throw in a pick from 23 and move a lot. If we're drafting 10 or 12 and the Rams are 25, we can take our one and the Rams one at 25 and throw in the Rams one from 23. That's how you can move up into the top 5, top 7, if that's what you need to do to address your quarterback situation. And I think even Mike's dog agrees with that. I think he likes to trade, Mike, doesn't he?
Exactly. I think she says, one, you can make up all that money. You get all that money back if you just buy a couple shares of GameStop right now.
Exactly.
2, I think that this should probably shut up a lot of your Stafford haters, because nobody's giving Chicago first rounders for Mitch Trubisky. So
right. I think most of them. I would like to agree with you, but it didn't, because I, of course, jumped on Sports Talk Radio late Saturday after the trade happened, and a guy calls in and says this really isn't that good a trade because the Rams are going to be good, so those first round picks are going to be late in the first round. So I thought about it. I considered calling in, and I'm like, but wait a minute. So your whole premise is that there's only 15 players in the NFL draft that are any good? That a guy drafted late. Lamar Jackson, I think, was drafted 30 or 31.
Yeah, you guys get some good hits.
Exactly. Yeah. Our own roster. Kenny Golladay was a 3rd round pick. Darius Slay, who was a corner that we traded last year, multiple Pro Bowl guy, was a 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
The idea that you can't get a good player at 25, 27, even 30 is absurd. It is ridiculous, especially when you have Brad Holmes, who by all accounts is really good at scouting and draft prep. So I fully expect Brad Holmes to hit on all of these picks, including the 3rd round pick this year. So my reaction Saturday night was super excited. I've done more diligence on the contract. I have a better understanding of how they might use those picks. I'm even more excited, and no matter which way they go, which we can talk about a little later, I am ecstatic still. So yeah, that's my feeling initially and still. So, all right, what's your next one?
All right. Number 2, Luna wants to know if this was the best offer.
Luna is her name?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Luna. Here's the deal. It depends on who you are and your level of instant gratification. If you're one of those people who wanted to get better right now, you might not think so. I am of the opinion that Brad Holmes used the word retool because it's just not politically correct to use a term like rebuild. The idea is that you set your fans up and you're saying to your fans, we're not going to win anytime soon. Well, anybody who knows a damn thing about football knows we're not going to win anytime soon. So I'm not offended by the word rebuild. In fact, I'm encouraged. So because they won't say it, just as a matter of business, they generally don't say that. You have to look at the other things. You have to look at clues. Dan Campbell getting a 6-year contract is the biggest clue. It's the obvious clue. That means he needs time. He demanded time because he knows his strategy is we're going to need to rebuild this thing. And I'm not trying to bash these guys because it's super easy now. It's super easy. But Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, really Matt Patricia, but Bob Quinn owns it because he hired Matt Patricia. Decimated us from a talent standpoint by bringing in players that fit a specific, really, really bad system and drafting players to try and fit them into a bad system. So the problem is that you're left with these pieces, and we could go down the line and talk about Jarrett Davis and Jelani Tavai. And I like Deron Harmon, but does he still fit? Does Desmond Trufant remain here? I don't know. What do we do with Jamie Collins? I don't know, right? And you have free agents like Golladay and Marvin and Romeo Okwara. You drafted players for a system that was so bad. Now you have to hope world-class athletes at the NFL level can play in any system. They are Dom Capers, so I assume there's going to be a base 3-4. We're bad at linebacker. We're really bad at linebacker. And a base 3-4 certainly depends on linebackers on the outside that have the flexibility to cover tight ends or rush the passer. We don't have that guy on our roster. We don't. Jamie Collins is probably a nice guy. We don't have that. So now you, Brad Holmes, walk into this situation where, for lack of a better term, Quinn and Patricia have crapped the bed for the better part of 4 years. You have to rebuild. You cannot come in and go, I'm going to fix this mess. This is one of those classic, you got a bucket of chicken crap. And Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell said, we can't make chicken salad out of this. We're not going to use that metaphor. We're not. This is a bucket of chicken crap. We aren't even going to try and make chicken salad. What we're going to do is we're going to dump this bucket. We're going to clean it out. And then we're going to get the things we need to make chicken salad. The second clue is trading Matthew Stafford. If they thought this team was ready to win anytime soon, you have a good quarterback. You know why I know you have a good quarterback? Because the Rams gave you 3 picks and a quarterback for him. Your value is not what some sports talk radio host in Detroit says it is. It's certainly not what dumbass Dan says it is. Your value, Matthew Stafford, is what another team is willing to give up to get you. The debate is over because the Rams gave them 3 picks and a serviceable to competent quarterback. Clearly, Matthew Stafford's very good. Beyond that, there were reports of 7 other teams. There's no more argument about the value of Matthew Stafford. I said it weeks ago. I said it after Thanksgiving when we had the podcast, and I had to just accept what it was. And there were people saying, oh, I had a friend last week say, oh, they're lucky to get a second and a third. And I said, you're out of your mind. There's no, I'm hanging up the phone on anybody who doesn't start with multiple picks, and one of them better be a first. And so, not just because I love to say I was right, I'm about to say it a lot, though, because I absolutely was. This is what I've read. And this is from SB Nation, and it's reported, right? So I'm not saying this is accurate. This is what I've seen on SB Nation. Start with the Washington football team. Probably what I think is the second best offer. You could judge for yourself. But it sounds like they offered 19 plus a 3. The 19th pick of the first round in this year's draft, plus a third in this year's draft. That's a good offer. If I don't know about the Rams offer, that's a good offer. And because getting multiple picks, I think, was huge. We only have 5 picks in this draft. A big part of this was we have to get multiple picks. We want to get as many picks as possible. This would take us to 7 picks. This would have been a good thing for this draft. Does it fit the philosophy of we're building something sustainable for the future, or we're just trying to get better right now? Because the reality is you have to spend one of those picks on a quarterback. That's why the current deal, the deal that was accepted, is better. You don't have to draft a quarterback. If you take this deal from Washington and you're sitting at 7 and 19, you get the extra third. One of those picks is going to a quarterback, and you essentially have the Rams deal without the 2 picks. Because if you're thinking if Zach Wilson's there at 7, you project him to be better than Jared Goff. Okay, that's a discussion. If you think you're getting somebody at 19 who's going to project to be better than Jared Goff, it's a different discussion. I'm willing to have it. But there, I think you're choosing from Mac Jones and the kid from Florida, Trask. Do we know they're going to be as good as Goff? Do we know that? I don't think we know that. So essentially, 19 becomes the equivalent of Goff, maybe not the equivalent of Goff, and you get a 3. So it's Goff and a 3, and you don't even get the 2 future ones. If I don't know about the Rams deal, that's a decent deal. I would have been happy with it because you'd had 2 number 1s that would have given you the flexibility to even call the Jets if you love Justin Fields, which I don't. If you love Zach Wilson and you're worried he's going to go, you can call the Jets and say, I'll give you 7 and 19 to get up to 2. That's not ridiculous. So people who prefer this Washington trade over the Rams trade likely are people who don't like Jared Goff, which is fine. The interesting one is Carolina. Rumors are they offered 8 and a later pick. So now how much later? Did they offer 8 and a 5th rounder? No, I pass. That's more picks. And having 7 and 8, oof. Did they offer 8 plus, say, a second next year or a third? That's a conversation we have. But it's the same scenario as the first. You got to take a quarterback now. So even if you can get Wilson's guy you like at 7 or 8, you have to spend one of those picks on a quarterback, and all you're really getting is that later pick. You're getting now. I think Wilson may project to be better than Goff. I can't talk about Justin Fields. He's not for me. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he won't be successful in the league. He's not for me. The difference is simple. You have to spend one of those picks on a quarterback. And with the current deal they accepted, they don't. They have a quarterback they can definitely play this year, probably play the next 2 years, and they get all those picks. So as much as the idea of picking 7 and 8 will satisfy instant gratification guy, because you can get 2 studs. Even if you ignore the quarterback thing and say, we're going to play Chase Daniel at quarterback, you could have drafted 2 defensive studs. And if you do anything in free agency, you could have signed a free agent quarterback. You're instantly better with it. I think that's short-term thinking. I do not believe anything that Brad Holmes or Dan Campbell, or even the whole process of hiring those guys, suggests that they're trying to do something immediate. I think the idea of trading Stafford at all, the 6-year contract to Campbell, both suggest long-term rebuild, even though they'll never say that. Third team, the Colts. Apparently, they offered a package of players and picks, but none of those picks was the first-round pick this year, number 21. That's a non-starter for me. That's a non-starter. Unless it was 5 picks and 2 players or some kind of unbelievably ridiculous package. If you don't include the 21st pick in this year's draft in that deal, it's kind of a non-starter. I don't even think those discussions went that long. And quite frankly, shame on the Colts, because they're close. They're close. And they should have stepped up.
Luna's saying the same thing. I don't know if you can hear it, but she's saying the same thing.
Luna's like, the Colts are idiots. I agree with Luna. The Colts don't. I mean, I don't. Oh,
yeah, she's really vocal about this.
Don't like the Colts. 49ers never made an official offer, but the report is they didn't want to put up the 12th pick. And if I've already gotten a call from Carolina, who's willing to give me 8, and the Washington football team, who's willing to give me 19 and another pick, what's the point of this call? You don't want to put 12 in the deal? Who are you giving me? You giving me Bosa? I mean, who are you giving me? I don't want the garbage. No, I shouldn't call him garbage. He's probably a nice guy. I don't want any parts of Jimmy Garoppolo. And if you're not including 12, I don't know why you called. I really don't. That call's quick. Denver wanted to do some pick swapping nonsense. The Patriots apparently were interested, and there were multiple picks involved, is what I'm told. But
did you hear about his deal with the Patriots, though?
Stafford said, "Don't dare trade me to the Patriots."
Yeah.
He wants no part of them, and I don't blame him. And you could be nice and say it's weather. Yeah, okay. He lives in Metro Detroit.
Brady's shadow.
I don't think it's Brady's shadow. I think it's 2 words: Matt Patricia, who's back with the Patriots, or even the Patriot way in general. Because Patricia fancies himself a Belichick disciple. I don't blame him. I think he saw what the Patriot way was, which is this crappy system that doesn't treat players equivalent to their value. We can just plug and play anybody in. So see you later, Quandre Diggs, trade Darius Slay, that kind of mentality. Devon Kennard, you run down the list of players, Snacks Harrison, you just ship them out because our system is what works. And we can plug and play any old player in that system, except that didn't work. Not only did it not work, it failed miserably here. I think he had gotten enough exposure to whatever we're going to call the Patriot way, and he flat said, I want no part of that. And the Lions were, I can't imagine a Patriot offer was better than what the Rams ultimately sent. But even if it was, I think they would have considered Stafford and not necessarily like done him a solid, but if you have remotely competitive offers, I think you pass on that one. And I just don't think whatever they have the 15th overall, and maybe they generally have multiple picks. So a package of picks could have been nice, but again, the one thing the Rams were able to give the Lions that nobody, the possible exception of the Jets, because I like Sam Darnold, gave them was a quarterback they could plug in right now. a quarterback that the general manager knows, is familiar with, and is comfortable with because he drafted him. And so your boys are interesting. I heard they were involved. And I heard they had 2 number ones on the table. So, but you can't do that. I don't think that was ever serious. Anybody who ever mentioned it to me, I was like, and I don't even know why. I'm not sitting here saying this concept of not trading in your division is valid or makes sense, because I don't think it does. I don't think it matters. If the Bears would have pony up a better offer, fine, send them.
I mean, here's my deal with the Bears trading for Stafford, though. I think Detroit could have sent a stuffed shirt, a scarecrow, and with a number 9 on him, and the Bears would have been like, "Oh yeah, that looks like a quarterback." Like, that's where I'm at with the Bears in terms of like quarterback scouting, quarterback like how they interpret quarterback skill sets. It's like you could put anybody out there and they'd be like, "Yeah, let's pay him $20 million a year." So.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but it's tough. It's tough because you're going to see him twice a year, so that's ink down 4 times you got to see him, and that's my nightmare. I don't have a nightmare of Stafford raising a Lombardi with the Rams. I would feel good for him, particularly if it's next year or the year after, because I don't have some false sense of we are going to be competitive in the next 2 years. You have to accept this. And this was the difficulty I had. The move on from Stafford concept was an obvious signal that, okay, this is a process. It's going to require patience, something I'm not known for, particularly as it relates to this football team. It's going to require patience. Our podcast next year, particularly the segment we call #OnePride, is going to be a whole lot of you and I discussing people who this whole year were saying move on from Stafford. And next year, they're going to bash Jared Goff. And they're going to be impatient. And they're going to bash the GM. They're going to bash the coach, because that's what they do. That's who Dumbass Dan is. That's what they do. When a real fan, a smart fan, and I'm not saying they're dumb people. I've always been consistent. Dumbass Dan might be really good at his job, whatever it is. He might be a good husband and father. He's a horrible football fan. No, he's a horrible Detroit Lions fan. That's what I talk about. He's the guy that calls in the sports talk radio like this idiot Saturday night and said, this is a horrible trade. Those 2 number ones are going to be late first round picks, as if they're of no value. So, the Jets, by the way, checked in, and it's weird. I don't know why. I don't get that. They have Darnold on the roster. They've got the number 2 pick. What was that? How did that conversation go? We'll give you Darnold for Stafford, and then, or did they offer us Darnold and something else? I don't even know how deeply that conversation went, but a number of teams sort of checked in. They talked to a bunch of people. As I've read this, the research I've done in 2 days, there's not a single deal that I've heard someone's reported. I'm not even saying they're real. What's been reported is all I have to go on. There's nothing close to what the Rams offered. Nothing. And Goff's contract means nothing. And if you put that much weight on Goff's contract, you're going to have to explain that to me, because I don't understand it. I don't, because to just release Stafford and get out from under the $43 million you owed him, you were going to eat $20 million in dead money, right? The Rams paid Goff's full bonus. You owe him $43 million over 2 years, and I will take Jared Goff at 21.5. Just fine, even though I don't think it breaks down that way. And in 2 years, there's literally no cost. So it's like a 2-year audition for a 26-year-old that has won playoff games and been to a Super Bowl. I can't even think of how one of those other deals made more sense. Even if you love Carolina's 8th pick and a 3rd, you would have had to spend 7 or 8 on a quarterback who comes in not ready. We have a guy who's ready. He's got 4 years in the league. And just because Sean McVay tired of him, or got tired of something, and there's rumors from work ethic to their personality clashes to turnovers, legitimate. But it doesn't mean those things can't be fixed. It doesn't mean there are quarterbacks who changed teams and resurrected their careers, because it's happened many times. So I have not seen any deal reported that in my mind comes close to this deal. This is a home run. In baseball parlance, this is a home run. This is like a 3-run homer, bottom of the 8th. And you got Willie Hernandez warming up in the bullpen. And I'm really old. And if you don't know Tiger baseball and you're not as old as me, shame on you. That means the game's over. I think this was short answer. This trade far exceeded any expectations I had of what they would get for Stafford. And I eat cornbread every single day. Every day. I've joked in podcasts that I carved number 9 into my cornbread. You guys know how much I love Matthew Stafford. I will never apologize for it. So to me, this is that rare trade where literally everyone wins. The Rams won because I think this makes them one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the NFC, gives them a shot to go to the Super Bowl. The Lions won because they can legitimately support a real rebuild with the draft capital they received while still having a competent quarterback. We don't have to live the David, no disrespect to David Blau. He's probably a nice guy. We don't have to live the David Blau experience for 2 years. We don't have to go out and pay somebody, Jameis or somebody else. We get a competent quarterback who's played in a Super Bowl, who's won playoff games, because that's always the barometer for why Stafford's not great is he's never won a playoff game. So we just acquired a 26-year-old who's won playoff games, who's played in the Super Bowl, who's got a contract that is not an albatross that drags this organization down or negatively impacts the rebuild. They can build out the rest of the roster over the next 2 years while assessing what Jared Goff is. And if it turns out he's what we think he is or what we want him to be, you just extend him and he'll sign it most likely because he's probably happy. And if he doesn't, you have built out the rest of your team so you can attract a free agent quarterback because you have a great defense. You have a running game. You have the ability to win. Or guess what? You got 2 number 1s, 2 bonus number 1s. So you can draft a quarterback in 2 years. You can use one of your first round picks in 2023 and draft a quarterback. You can take the 2 of those picks, trade up 12 or 15 spots and draft the best quarterback in the 2023 draft. Yeah, that makes sense. If you manage the cap well, which you should, because you shouldn't be signing any massive free agents right now. You should be living out the contracts of Trey Flowers and Jamie Collins and these crappy contracts that Bob Quinn signed, and rebuild your defense, rebuild your roster. You have young players on the offensive line. You have guys that Jonah Jackson should be your starting guard then. You re-up Taylor Decker. Frank Ragnow should be in his prime in 2 years. Swift, Carry-On should be in their prime in 2 years. If you re-sign Galladay, he's still in his prime. So I think this is and by the way, this is a good trade for Matthew Stafford. All jokes about Kelly Stafford liking California and keep your Clayton Kershaw jokes to yourself. I don't care about that. I like Kelly Stafford, by the way. I know a lot of people don't. I think she's great for the community. I think by all accounts, she's a good person. That's fine. I think it's good for him. I think he gets a chance to win, which is not the chief reason, but if you can get this kind of haul for this 33-year-old quarterback and he gets to go to a team that's competitive and he gets a chance, good for him. He's got to go do it. He can shut them up now. So to your earlier point of, does this shut up the Stafford haters? Stafford's going to shut up the Stafford haters over the next 2 years, in my opinion. So I think it's good for everybody. I really like to trade, obviously. So, all right, one more.
All right, one more. So, what do you think? What do you think is the impact of the 2021 strategy? How do you think this affects free agency, the draft? Where does the team go from here?
So there's a couple right? Let's see. I'm going to say 4. There's 4 scenarios I can roll with. Okay. So scenario 1, and there are people who buy this. You take a quarterback at 7, right? You do your scouting, you build your draft board, and if when you get to 7, particularly if Zach Wilson's there, that could be the whole thing. If Zach Wilson's there at 7, you draft him. I wouldn't balk at that. What I would then say, though, is you have to sit down, Dan Campbell and Anthony Lynn and Mark Brunell, and say, do not play this kid. He will learn from you in practice. He will learn from watching Jared Goff play, good, bad, or ugly. he will learn. This is your Aaron Rodgers sit behind Brett Favre for 2+ years case. I don't want Zach Wilson taking a snap in 21, if that's what you decide to do. That's not going to be easy because you're going to have people on sports talk radio, dumbass Dan, the minute Jared Goff has a bad game, and he will, because he's good. He's not great. He's good. Even if he improves, he's going to have a bad day because everybody has a bad day. He's going to have a bad day because his team isn't that great. There are going to be people clamoring for that kid by week 3. It would be unfair to Jared Goff. It would be unfair to whoever, I'm going to say the kid, because whoever they are is probably 20, 21 years old, and that's younger than my son, so it's appropriate. Whoever the kid is, he will be asked, he will represent the solution to Matthew Stafford. So he will get an unfair amount of weight and expectation that he shouldn't get. And it will put so much pressure on Campbell and Lynn to just be patient. Just be patient. That's the importance of a 6-year deal for Dan Campbell. He can ignore that nonsense. He can ignore dumbass Dan. He can ignore the dude on the radio in the afternoon who's going to say, you got to go play the kid. He needs to get snaps, blah, 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 blah. No. That's the downside to that strategy. It's going to happen because we're not a very good football team. So we're going to be losing, and people's frustration, they're going to post. #OnePride is going to be, why can't Zach Wilson play? Like week 5. They'll be like, the kid's ready. And with no evidence, that's what they'll do. But that's a move. Go ahead and draft your quarterback at 7. But then there's a set of problems that come with that. The patience you need to do that may be fine when you have a 6-year deal. May be fine when you're in the honeymoon period, because nothing they do this year is going to matter. Nobody's getting fired. Nobody's getting fired. If Dan Campbell does something crazy, like bites a kneecap, couldn't resist, sorry. Maybe. Short of biting somebody's kneecap, nobody's getting fired. Not this year. And that's the way it should be. I think you stay with the plan. You stay with the process. The process looks to me like long-term build, draft capital build. I love it. So developing a young quarterback isn't a horrible idea. You just got to stay committed to it. You can't be a prisoner of the moment and deviate from the obvious long-term plan. That's number 1. Draft a quarterback at 7, develop him. 2, don't draft a quarterback at all. Spend all your draft capital on defense. Well, not just defense. I mean, here's a simple reality. Jared Goff's your quarterback in 2021. There's not a question. Jared Goff will be your starting quarterback in 2021. I don't think I'm missing anything. There's no pressure on his team next year. There's no pressure on Jared Goff to win next year. There's going to be a honeymoon period in general. There was going to be one before the trade, no matter what happened. Now, knowing you got those future number 1s in your pocket, they're coming, there is not a sense of urgency right now to address the quarterback position. Again, this is my opinion. But do nothing else. You should be able to add impact players, right? You got free agency, and whether it's re-signing Romeo or someone else to rush the passer, between free agency 7 and 41, you should add 4 defensive players. This is an extreme view. 4 defensive players. And then later, get some offensive line depth. I think you still need a right guard. I don't know what you're going to do with V. Is V going to kick in the guard? You need a right tackle, whatever. And you're going to need receiver help. If you franchise Galladay, you're losing Marvin, you still need receiver help. Quintez Cephas will probably end up being a good receiver. I don't know that he's going to be a star. You need help at receiver. You need help on the offensive line. But I'm fine with the backfield. Peterson or not, Swift and Kerryon are solid. You can add a veteran to them. I don't think you need to address the quarterback situation. Your tight end situation is fine. I think you need help on the right side of your offensive line, and I think you need depth at receiver. Every other piece of asset that you use, whether it's cap space, free agency dollars, draft picks, should go to the defensive side of the ball. It just should. I think you need somebody who can rush the quarterback. That's the starting point. You have to get someone who can rush the quarterback. And they hired Dom Capers, which suggests a base 3-4. And a base 3-4 needs one thing. Good linebackers. Whether they're rushing the passer or dropping back in coverage, a base 3-4 needs good linebackers. And we don't have those. I would like Jared Davis to be better. I would love for Jelani Tavai to organically grow and be better. But I don't know. I think that Jamie Collins is under contract. We got to pay him. I don't know about Reggie Ragland. I don't know. I know that we will need help at linebacker for sure. We still can't put pressure on the quarterback. And if that means two birds, one stone, you're playing a base 4-3 and you're going to go and acquire an outside linebacker that's going to rush the passer opposite Trey Flowers, or you're going to re-sign Romeo and still sign a linebacker, you have to figure out a way to get pressure on the quarterback, period. Then for those who don't like Jeff Okudah, they will tell you we need corner help. I happen to think that with a real offseason, and I'm not 100% sure he's going to get that, I think Jeff Okudah is going to be fine. You still need help at corner. I don't know what Desmond Trufant is at this point. You need help at corner. And Deron Harmon aside, you need help at safety. And did I mention you need a defensive lineman to help you rush the passer? So you need help on every level of defense, like multiple players. Nothing, I wouldn't be bothered at all if they made 2 splashy free agent signings and used 7 and 41 all defense. I would clap. I would applaud, because I'm not going to have heartburn if Jared Goff is my quarterback for the entire 2021 season. I don't think quarterback position is burning platform. I just don't. Instant gratification guy is going to say, hey, this draft is deep at quarterback. Go get him. You know what they know? They know who's coming out next year and probably the year after that. They're acutely aware of where the quarterback situation is. I don't think you rebuild. I keep saying rebuild because despite what they're going to say, they're rebuilding. I don't think you need to do anything at the quarterback position this year. So strategy number 2 is don't draft a quarterback at all. Spend your capital on defense. 3, and this is a weird one, but stay with me. Trade Jared Goff. After free agency happens, there's going to be shuffles. The Jets are going to do something. Deshaun Watson is going to land somewhere. Houston's going to probably need a quarterback unless they do something with Miami for Tua or the Jets for Sam Darnold. New Orleans might need a quarterback. New England still needs a quarterback. If you talk to my producer and friend, the Bears need a quarterback, right? There will be people who need quarterback help after free agency. So March 17th, March 18th, things are going to shake out quick. So a week after March 17th, there's going to be 2 or 3 teams that still need quarterbacks. And that is before what? The NFL draft. So when you get out near the draft, if there's some team who still thinks they're a quarterback away, they still think San Francisco somehow doesn't land a quarterback, don't get Deshaun Watson. They can't sign whoever. I think it's a conversation there. Maybe not with them because maybe they like Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know. Is Jared Goff better than Mitch Trubisky, Mike?
Oh, man. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo because earlier I was thinking, there's always the, when you're talking about, if you draft a quarterback in the first round, maybe you groom him like Jimmy G. Yeah. Not saying, I'm not trying to equate Jared Goff to Tom Brady or anything, but,
right.
Maybe you groom him for a little bit and then maybe Jared Goff just takes off. Maybe he's your franchise quarterback that you needed, the answer to Stafford. Yeah. And then what do you do with the dude that you drafted? Maybe you trade him, you get some other capital for him. So
yeah. So this is an option. I don't think it's a real one. I felt compelled to talk about it because I think there are people who either A, buy into this nonsense about his contract that I almost wonder if I'm missing something because I read multiple times and heard multiple times the Rams paid his bonus money. He's due $43 million over the next 2 years in guaranteed money. I don't have a problem with that. I don't understand what the problem with that is, but I've heard people use the word albatross of his contract. I don't understand that. So the biggest problem with this theory, and I do not believe this is going to happen, by the way, I think Jared Goff's our quarterback 2021. I don't know that he's going to have a segment on the podcast. You got to earn that. You got to earn that. But he will be our quarterback. I think the one major flaw with this theory is I think the Lions want Jared Goff. I think the Lions like Jared Goff, especially Brad Holmes, the guy who helped trade up and draft him 4 years ago. I think they like Goff, and they think the change of scenery and working with Anthony Lynn and Mark Brunell, he could be the long-term answer at quarterback. I think in a perfect world for Brad Holmes, 2 years from now, we're not looking to get out from under his deal. We're getting him in the third year, kind of on the cheap, and then we're re-upping him for 4 more. And I agree, that would be a perfect world. So I'm not saying they're right. I'm saying it's smart to look into it. I'm willing to take these 2 years to figure out if Jared Goff is our quarterback. I'm willing to take these 2 years to build out the rest of our roster and see if 2 years from now, we can't field a team where Jared Goff is good enough to take that team deep into the playoffs. Now, the reality is somebody could pick up the phone and say, we like Goff all along. We can handle the rest of his contract. Sometime between March 17 and April 29, somebody calls and says, we'll give you a couple of 2s for Goff. Then you make that deal and get even more picks and build out the roster even better. And then what you do at quarterback is irrelevant. I don't do anything this year no matter what. In that scenario, if somebody offers a deal you can't resist for Goff, I play Chase Daniel at quarterback. I don't think that might not be right. If you draft somebody at 7 and Jared Goff's not on the roster, that kid's going to play. And I don't want that. And I like Zach Wilson. Trevor Lawrence has not been mentioned because he's not an option, not a viable option. I think Justin Fields will be really good for the right team. I don't think we're that team. I don't know what Trey Lance is. He will likely be there at 7. I don't know that you should take him at 7. I don't know what Mac Jones is. I've seen Mac Jones projected in the middle teens, 15 in New England, for example. I've seen Trask projected anywhere from 18 to second round. So I don't know, but I believe this is really moot because I think Brad Holmes likes Jared Goff. I think the organization, and I don't know if it's arrogance, they believe the best case scenario is Jared Goff comes here with something to prove to the Rams. They develop a system and he picks it up well. And he performs well here, and you're using that capital to add and build a team around Jared Goff, which truthfully is the best case scenario. It is. It's the best case scenario because you have a young quarterback in his mid-20s who is under team control, whose contract is not going to feel like an albatross in 2 years. I don't think it's one now. 2 years from now, it will not be at all because other guys will have signed and that number is going to be ridiculous, and you're going to have him at a reasonable number for 2 more years. So that one had to mention it. I think they made this trade in part. The thing that made this trade the Godfather trade, right? Just the offer they couldn't refuse, is actually Goff, not the picks, because the Carolina offer is solid, and the Washington offer was solid, but getting Goff in the deal solves, air quotes, solves your quarterback problem temporarily, so that you can use the capital in another way. So the fourth one, and the one I believe in the most, the one I like the most, I think the move is trade out of 7, trade back, trade back to 15, 18, even 20, and draft a quarterback there because there's no downside. If Kyle Trask is there, if Trey Lance is there, this is easy. Even Mac Jones, if someone wants to trade back, let's say Washington wants to move up from 12, but New England at 15, and you can get more picks. And I mean legit, not 3, 4th round. No. If somebody wants to move up to 7, you're getting a 1 this year. You're probably going to get multiple other picks, 2s and 3s kind of picks, not 5s and 6s. If someone wants to move from 15 to 7, I don't have to chart. You're probably getting 3 picks for that. You're going to get 15, and you'll probably get a pick this year and a pick next year. Do that, and then go down to 15, take the best player on your board. Understand, you have your quarterback. You don't even have to draft a quarterback. I don't draft a quarterback at all. You can get your quarterback next year. You can get your quarterback in 2 years. I trade back out of 7, back to 15, 12, 15, 17, whoever, 21. What if the Colts have a kid at 21, at 7 that they like? Give us 21. Give us, I think 54 is their second round pick, and give us a pick next year to move from 21 to 7. That's what you do. You don't have to take a quarterback. You can drop back at 21, take best defensive player. And then you got your own pick at 40, and you got additional picks. You got 72 and 88, and you're and whatever else you get from Indy. That's the move. I don't even bother drafting a quarterback this year. I trade out of 7 and get even more draft capital, even if some of those picks are later. That's what you do, because I like the idea that you give Jared Goff an opportunity to show what he can do over the next 2 years. I like the idea that you work with him because I like the staff. And the best friend of a rebuild, I'll say it again, is draft capital. 7 is an asset. Don't plug in a name. Don't say 7 is Zach Wilson. Now, if you love Zach Wilson, right, you got a 98, 97 grade on Zach Wilson, and he's there at 7, that kind of grade says, this is a franchise quarterback. You don't pass him up. You draft him, you let him sit and learn. I'm fine with that. If that's the kind of grade, Brad Holmes, who has a history of really good draft prep, John Dorsey, who's respected as a talent evaluator, if they've got that kind of grade on Zach Wilson and he's there at 7, then you take him. And you come to the podium and said, we had a 97 grade. We think he's a franchise quarterback. This doesn't impact the fact that Jared Goff's our quarterback next year. Deal with it. And you're going to get dumbass Dan week 5 saying Zach Wilson should be starting. You got to stay disciplined. That goes back to number 1. I would be fine if they come to the podium and say, we have a quarterback. So we traded out of 7 and we got 3 more picks. We got 2 more picks this year and 1 next year. And then they end up drafting 5, 6 players this April, handful of whom really impact the team. That's how you rebuild. You cannot lose sight that they're going to rebuild. Don't fall for the okie doke. Don't get excited. They are rebuilding. They are rebuilding. So I think there's options. I like the last one. Trade out of 7, get even more draft capital, and build your team. You build your team. And Brad Holmes has a reputation of being a good talent evaluator and a good draft preparer. So I expect 2nd and 3rd round picks to be meaningful. I expect contributions from 4th round picks, even if they're just special teamers or specialists, like a third down slot receiver or a nickel corner or punt returner. Those are the dudes you need to get in the 5th and 6th. A guy you get at 7 should be a star. So I think there's options there, and it will be exciting. It's certainly going to be exciting. I think that this has been the most exciting offseason. I said weeks ago, the GM hire was the most important hire in the history of the franchise. I will tell you, my initial reaction is they got it right. They got it right. Brad Holmes' first thing he did, he nailed it. I mean, A++ home run. So he's going to have to make a lot of mistakes now. I am on the Brad Holmes bandwagon very quickly because this turned out about as well as it could have. Far exceeded my expectations. And I think most people, in a moment of honesty, would say they never imagined they were going to get this much for Stafford. This is a great trade. This is a great, to wrap up this mini podcast, this is a great trade. Anybody who says it's not is disingenuous. They have an agenda, or they're just stupid. Dumbass Dans exist. So,
yeah, so. I think as a Bears fan, as an outsider looking in, I think there was for the Rams, this was a high risk trade. If they think they're in win now mode, I think this is high risk for them.
Yeah.
As a substitute, a part-time Lions fan, I would say that this was pretty low risk for the Lions. I think low risk, high reward. I think there's a high ceiling with Goff. We've seen it. We've seen him get to the playoffs. We've seen him have decent seasons. But at the same time, you get draft capital, and that's where I think most of the potential, most of the reward falls in.
Yeah.
Depending on what you do with that. And I think just as a new GM, probably coming in and having something to prove, and this is he had a lot of potential to make the wrong decision. A lot of potential to make the wrong trade, And it sounds like he didn't. It sounds like this wasn't a super controversial trade. So
No,
we'll see.
no. Yeah, like I said, my feeling is anyone who doesn't like this trade, and I have not heard a single person, not even the dumbass Dans, when they call in, they go, I don't think it's as great as everybody else does because the picks are late. Universally, people have said this was a really good trade. Now, the conversation is tended to shade more toward the Rams because, like you just said, they're going for it. They're going for it because they don't have any depth now. They've got the best defensive player, probably the best 2 defensive players in the league. I'm willing to say they got 2 of the best 4 or 5 defensive players in the league, and Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. They're going for it. They're saying we got a window. And in that window, in this offense, a guy with the arm like Stafford, a guy with the toughness like Stafford, the ability to make decisions, he fits so well. And I think it's a brilliant trade by the Rams. Brilliant. I think Brad Holmes hit a 3-run homer on this trade. I was shocked at how much. I thought it was a mistake. And then I just thought, now this, but and the underlying takeaway, which I love, the best part of this is they're doing the rebuild correctly, but they're not tanking. Jared Goff means you don't have to tank. You could do this rebuild and stay competitive. Green Bay's going to drop off at some point. Minnesota's Minnesota, and you're my dude and everything, but Mitchell Trubisky is still your quarterback. So you can be competitive. And I don't know what the value of that is. There are those who say, why be competitive? Why don't you just lose so all those draft picks are better? I don't think that's how it works. I don't think it's how it should work. So I love everything about the trade, literally for everyone. I think it's Brad Holmes' first move, like I said, A++, and I'm super excited. So that's we just wanted to focus on that and drop a little mini podcast on you guys. We'll be back for free agency in probably 5 weeks. I think it's going to start buzzing up February 12, 13. You're going to start hearing a lot more. If something else happens, we'll get on and do another one. Just like this one, we'll be like, we can't wait that long. We got to talk about this trade. And from a Lion perspective, I don't really see anything there. If they were to move Goff or make some splashy move, that would be interesting. But I think you're going to see February 14th, 15th, the buzz starts to happen. Agreements are the 15th through the 17th, and the new league year starts on the 17th, and things become official. So I would say for sure you should look for another podcast mid-February, probably somewhere in or around the 17th when things become official. This trade actually won't become official until then. So all right, Mike, it was great, my man. Appreciate it. It was a good time. Covered a lot of stuff. Let's say goodbye to my quarterback. And we appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. And we will talk to you again soon. Thank you.